Hello and welcome to the latest agenda show from the Blood Red channel with myself, Matt Addison, alongside our Liverpool FC correspondent, Paul Gorst. Sign a player, that was the shout from Liverpool fans, and that's exactly what they have done. Greek international Kostas Tsimikas has officially arrived from Olympiakos on a 5-year deal and becomes the Premier League champions' first signing of the summer. The deal was done very quickly after Liverpool saw 2 bids rejected for Norwich City's Jamal Lewis. And Paul's going to give us the inside story of exactly how it all panned out over the course of the next few minutes. First of all, Gorsty, before we get into the details of the transfer and how it all unfolded, just your general thoughts on what we've seen of the player and heard of the player so far.
I believe he's someone who's obviously played for the top club in Greece, played in the Champions League, played in the Europa League, and someone who does seem to come with a little bit of a burgeoning reputation. I mean, he'll be under no illusions that he won't be first choice at Anfield next season. Andy Robertson, for good reason, has got that spot nailed down. But I just think he will offer similar style in terms of when Robertson isn't available. We've seen this season that James Milner is the preferred option when Robertson doesn't play, and they're not like for like at all. That's a 34-year-old midfielder playing out of position in a position that's been vacated by one of the best in Europe. So there's no doubt that Liverpool have needed someone as backup to Robertson, and as we're going to get into over the next 10 or 15 minutes, all those background checks have pointed as Tsimikas as the man who can fill that bill in. So we're not going to be seeing him every week, but I think he's going to be an interesting prospect when we do see him in cup games and maybe games where Liverpool feel they can rest Robertson.
Yeah, he certainly caused a lot of excitement among Liverpool fans, and in his home country of Greece as well. We've spoken to plenty of people who are really, really excited about the player. But I mean, Liverpool have been aware of him for a long, long time. Their scouting team have been getting feedback on him for years, and there's been plenty of examples of where they've been impressed by him.
Yeah, I mean, they've almost kind of stumbled on him, really, because the scouts in the Dutch region for Liverpool were asked to check on Pedro Chilabella while he was on loan at Willem II, is that how you pronounce it? And while they were kind of updating on progress of him, they've noticed Tsimikas, who was also on loan from Olympiakos, and they've noticed an aggressive, pacey left-back with plenty of room to develop. And I think at the time, it might have been 20, maybe 21. I mean, he's only 24 now, and this is going back a few years. So the name was fed back to Liverpool's recruitment team, and ever since then, he's been kind of kept tabs on. And okay, let's be honest, the club the size of Liverpool, that short list is going to be a pretty long list, isn't it? So they're going to be looking at players from every area of the globe. So this isn't someone who they've almost honed in on, and he's been like the only one for them, because they look at players all over the world, and so they should be as a club the size of Liverpool. But he's someone who they have looked at, they've known about, and the more they've got to know, the more they've kind of liked and tried to find out more about, and they have built up a relationship with the players' representatives over the years, and obviously Olympiakos as well. So there's been plenty of background that's gone into this player. He's not someone who's kind of caught the eye because he had a couple of good games in the Europa League. He's someone who the club have known about for years, which was a similar thing with Takumi Minamino from Salzburg. He wasn't someone who the club have bought because he had a good game at Anfield. Again, he's a player who's even known about. So the scouting network at Liverpool, as you would expect, as I say, of a top European club, is very expansive and wide-ranging.
One of the games that sort of stands out really for Liverpool being impressed by him was against Burnley in the Europa League. Very impressed with the way that he sort of dealt with the atmosphere, with a pacey and tricky Aaron Lennon as well. I mean, what is it specifically that they've seen in this player? What is it that stands out as being potentially a really good Liverpool player?
Well, as you say there about that game at Turf Moor in 2018, I think that it's almost a yardstick of measuring a player's willingness and capability to cope with English football. Turf Moor, very raucous and raw, and they've got an up and atom style that they make no apologies for, and it's almost seen as like the new Stoke, whereas it's a bit of a cliche, isn't it? If you can do it at Stoke on a Tuesday night, well, can you do it at Burnley on a Thursday night in the Europa League? And he certainly seemed to contain Aaron Lennon, a pacey Aaron Lennon. If you've got an Aaron Lennon flying at you for 75 minutes, it's a real test as a fullback, isn't it? And the fact that Aaron Lennon was withdrawn that night for Jack Cork, not a like for like at all, on 75 minutes, probably did show a lot to the scouts who were maybe watching him for the first time on the night from Liverpool. So that game was highlighted to me as one that kind of stands out for them, and they've kept tabs on him since. So as we say, it is a deal that's 3 years in the making, and that was a big checkpoint from scouts a little bit closer to home from Liverpool that night.
And it's not just how good he is at football, it's also that sort of check on the player's character and that sort of thing. There's also the stage, as you mentioned, of building up that relationship with his representatives. This is something that Liverpool have been working towards for a long, long time, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, I think if you look at the fact that Liverpool have a sporting director in Michael Edwards, I think he was the first one to actually be a sporting director in name at Liverpool. It's a role that's very much just focused on developing relationships and making sure that you are at the front of the queue for when top talent becomes available. We know that Michael Edwards has developed a good relationship with so many people across Europe. Red Bull Salzburg again with Minamino. That was another one that was highlighted at the time with Christoph Salzer, I think his name was. So, sorry, Christoph Freund. I mean, I think that role is about developing relationships, isn't it? And then that helps when you come to negotiations, and this has certainly been the case when Edwards made that mad dash to Wolverhampton on Thursday night to speak to his counterpart at Olympiakos. And a big thing that was stressed to me was the fact that both clubs were really happy that none of this kind of came out at the time, and Olympiakos were able to focus on their preparations for the Wolves game that they've ultimately lost. But the players' head could have been turned on the night, and they were worried about that. So the fact that hasn't quite came out at the time, and it's been very much developing since, I think both clubs were quietly impressed with each other, and it does sound as if talks have been very amicable and agreeable.
Tsimikas, of course, has plenty of Champions League experience as well. He's played against both Tottenham and Bayern Munich this season in that competition. I mean, how important do you think that would have been for Liverpool? Because we know that they looked at Jamal Lewis as well. That's something that Tsimikas almost has over Jamal Lewis, isn't it?
Yeah, as we say, he's playing for one of the top sides in Greece, isn't he? And Jamal Lewis isn't. He's playing for Norwich, who were relegated from the Premier League. And okay, he's had a year of experience in the Premier League. I think Lewis made 29 appearances last season. But Tsimikas is playing against Bayern Munich. He's playing against Tottenham. He's been to Belgrade, where Liverpool know that that's a very tough environment to go and play from their experience of the last few years. So that has been another big ticket in the box for him, and that continued in the Europa League as well. They obviously beat Arsenal, didn't they? And then they played Wolves across the two legs, albeit months apart. But I think there are a lot of things that seem to be going for this young Greek defender, and he's why Liverpool have probably ended up plumper for him ahead of others who they had on the shortlist.
And a 20% sell-on clause believed to be inserted into the deal as well. I mean, do you think that was almost a sweetener to get the price down a little bit? Do you think that would have made him a little bit more attractive for Michael Edwards?
Quite possibly. And I mean, I think he's only 24, isn't he? So he could feasibly move on later in his career after, at the end of his 5-year deal, he's still only 29. And if he's still of the quality where he's able to play for the team in the Premier League, then, that will obviously benefits Olympiakos down the line. They've honed his talent since he was 19. They've sent him out on loan. They've got him up to the standard that he's at now, and I think they were so proud that one of their owners has kind of been courted by the Premier League winners, the current Champions League holders, and the Club World Cup winners. So, as we say, it does seem to be a deal that suits the player and both selling and buying club.
And all that detail being the case, then we have to assume, presumably, Liverpool did those sorts of checks and that sort of scouting for Lloyd Kelly, for Sergio Reguilon, and of course Jamal Lewis as well. And I suppose that just goes to show, really, the amount of work that Michael Edwards and his scouting team get through.
Well, exactly. And I was told on Sunday, I think, that Reguilon was kind of. It was too high a price, 18 million. He was obviously been on loan at Sevilla this season from Real Madrid, and Lloyd Kelly was looked at last summer, maybe in a little bit more detail than he was this summer, but he was certainly still part of that 4-man shortlist. But ultimately, I think price, age, ceiling, ability to develop and improve is what has won Tsimikas won them the race ahead of, obviously the bid was rejected for Jamal Lewis. But let's face it, if he was the number one man, Liverpool would have got him by hook or by crook. We've seen it time and again. Norwich weren't really in a position to argue too much, being relegated, and the player himself wanted to come to Liverpool. That could have ended up very messy if Liverpool wanted it. But the fact that they've got so many other options and so many alternatives, if you like, is proof of Edwards' work.
And a last question then, because I know a lot of listeners will be keen to hear the answer. We've seen one signing come through the door now. How likely do you think is it that there might be one or two more that follow?
I mean, we've seen names emerge, haven't we, over the last week or two. There are one or two who they're certainly looking at. There'll be dozens more who we don't know of, but a lot does depend on the situation. I mean, it's not what people want to hear, but it is the truth. And Klopp said that Liverpool are likely to be more active when they know a little bit more about that. And further down the line, let's face it, the transfer window is still got the best part of 2 months to run. And Liverpool, at the moment, at a time when any game that they're playing is behind closed doors, they are losing around about not earning around about £3 million per home game. That all has a massive impact. So I think they might take a stance of looking at what they can earn from certain revenue streams, i.e. the night kit deal, i.e. when fans are allowed back in Anfield, and then they'll be in a better position to move in the market. But for now, I'm not anticipating it's going to be a huge, massively busy market on the incoming front. But we have seen that Liverpool do have players lined up, and they do track players for years back. So even when players do become available, then Liverpool can spring into action if the funds are there.
Absolutely, still plenty of time left in the market as well. But for now, at least, Tsimikas certainly looks to be as pleased at joining the Reds as Reds fans are about him being brought to the club. 24-year-old has plenty of experience of winning league titles in Greece. He's also played in the Champions League, and he'll be looking to make his mark very quickly indeed. Stay tuned across the Liverpool website and across Blood Red too, and we will have plenty more content about the Reds' new arrival, plus all of your LFC updates as the countdown to the new season really begins. For now though, from myself and from our Liverpool correspondent Ghost, thanks for watching and goodbye for now.